Hey there, friends. The Bible is known for its timeless wisdom, beautiful stories, and powerful lessons. But did you know it's also home to some really unusual laws? Yup, you heard that right. The Bible contains a few rules that may seem downright bizarre to us today, but they all had their purpose in ancient times. So buckle up as we take a fun and fascinating dive into the top 10 bizarre and unusual laws in the Bible. Let's jump in. 1. Don't wear clothes made of mixed fabrics. Leviticus 19:19. Ever check the tag on your shirt to see if it's a cotton polyester blend? Well, in ancient Israel, that could have been a big no-no. Leviticus 19:19 tells the Israelites not to wear clothing woven from two kinds of material. Why? This law symbolized purity and separation, reflecting God's desire for his people to be distinct from other nations. While we don't follow this law today, it teaches us about the importance of holiness and being set apart in our faith. 2. Don't trim the edges of your beard. Leviticus 19:27. Men with big beards might love this one. Leviticus 19:27 instructs men not to trim the edges of their beards or cut the hair at the sides of their heads. Why? This was likely to keep the Israelites distinct from pagan religious practices at the time. Beards were a symbol of identity, and this law reminded the people to maintain their God-given uniqueness. 3. Stoning for wearing the wrong clothes. Deuteronomy 22:5. Next up, Deuteronomy 22:5 says that men shouldn't wear women's clothes and women shouldn't wear men's. This one might sound strange to modern ears, but back then, this law was meant to uphold God's design for gender roles and avoid confusion in society. Why? The distinction in clothing reflected a broader principle of order and respect for God's creation. It taught the importance of living in harmony with how God designed us. 4. Don't boil a young goat in its mother's milk. Exodus 23:19. Okay, this one sounds really specific. In Exodus 23:19, God commands the Israelites not to boil a young goat in its mother's milk. Sounds like a strange cooking tip, right? Why? This law was meant to prevent pagan rituals from creeping into Israel's worship. Some scholars think it was a common fertility ritual in nearby nations, and God wanted his people to avoid those practices. 5. Building a fence around your roof. Deuteronomy 22:8. Have you ever thought about putting a fence around your roof? In Deuteronomy 22:8, there's a law that says if you build a house, you must also put a railing around the roof to prevent people from falling off. Why? In ancient times, flat roofs were often used like patios, where families would relax or entertain guests. This law was all about protecting others and taking responsibility for their safety. Sounds like practical advice to me. 6. Don't eat creatures with many legs. Leviticus 11:42. Here's one for the bug lovers. Leviticus 11:42 says, "Don't eat any creature that moves on its belly or has many legs." That means no snake or centipede stew for dinner. Why? This law helped keep the Israelites healthy and hygienic, and it also taught them about God's standard of cleanliness. It was a reminder to separate themselves from unclean things, spiritually and physically. 7. No tattoos. Leviticus 19:28. Here's one that gets a lot of questions today. In Leviticus 19:28, the Bible says, "Do not cut your bodies for the dead or put tattoo marks on yourselves." Why? This was likely to keep the Israelites from participating in pagan mourning rituals that involved body marking. The key message was to honor God in how they cared for their bodies, another call to be distinct from other nations. 8. Honoring the Jubilee year, Leviticus 25:10. Here's a law that could make some people happy. Every 50th year was called the Jubilee year. During this time, all debts were canceled, and land that had been sold was returned to its original owner. Why? This law taught about God's justice and mercy, reminding the Israelites that everything ultimately belonged to him. It was a fresh start for society, emphasizing fairness and care for one another. 9. No work on the Sabbath, not even lighting a fire. Exodus 35:3. Most of us know about keeping the Sabbath, but did you know that in Exodus 35:3, it says you can't even light a fire on the Sabbath day? Why? The Sabbath was a day of complete rest, dedicated to God. This law was a reminder of the importance of setting aside time to rest, reflect, and remember the Creator without any distractions. 10. Punishment for rebellious children. Deuteronomy 21:18-21. Here's one parents might appreciate, or maybe not. Deuteronomy 21:18-21 says that if a child is rebellious and refuses to listen to their parents, they could be brought to the elders of the city and face severe punishment. Why? This was meant to highlight the importance of honoring parents and respecting authority. While we don't follow this law today, it reminds us of the value God places on family harmony and obedience. So there you have it, 10 of the most unusual and bizarre laws found in the Bible. While some of these may seem strange or outdated to us today, they all had deep significance for the people of Israel. These laws were designed to set God's people apart, teaching them lessons about holiness, health, and harmony with others. Even though we don't follow many of these rules anymore, the principles behind them, like respecting authority, honoring God's creation, and living distinct lives as His people, still apply to us today. Thanks for joining us. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more fun and fascinating Bible topics. See you next time.